Raise your hand if you thought Kawhi Leonard might have been able to slow down Luka Doncic. Raise your hand if you went as far as to say Kawhi might be able to put Luka in a kind of jail. And once more, just raise your hand if you redacted that statement and now said, well, Kawhi would be able to put him in some kind of a Pablo Escobar type of jail. You know, one in which things come and go. Things aren't too strict. Those kind of jails, that's probably the kind of jail Kawhi or any Clipper player can hope to put Luka in. That's about as far as you're going to get because there's just not much happening to Luka Doncic. He's unstoppable right now, and the Clippers have zero answers as he put up 39, 7-7, takes a 2-0 lead, walked into Staples Center, walked out with a 2-0 lead, trash talked Patrick Beverley along the way, which we'll talk about in a bit. Trash talk Marcus Morris, trash talk the Clippers bench. He did all of that and just dropped buckets on them, 70 points over 2 games, triple-double in the first game, near 40-point game in the second game, and they have zero answers. He's taking one-legged threes. He's taking fadeaway, one-legged mid-range bank shots. Like, it doesn't matter. He's playing a game of horse out there. He's throwing up whatever shots he wants, and pretty much most of the time they're dropping, and he's going at whichever defender he wants. And yeah, Luka and the Mavs come away with another victory, this time winning 127 to 121, putting up 18 three-pointers. 18 of them. And well, the Clippers are going to be the punching bag for the entire NBA community. I'm not someone who wants to kick a team or a franchise while they're down. We don't want to do that. We've got morals around here. But I will say, the Clippers tanked against OKC and Houston on the last 2 days of the season to avoid the Lakers and come up against the Mavericks, a team that they beat last year in the playoffs. They thought, oh, we'll just do it again. We'll beat them in the first round, simple, and then we'll postpone the Lakers till later because we're obviously making it through the first round. Well, now you're down 2-0 after tanking shamelessly to avoid a Lakers team that you probably didn't think you could beat, and you definitely shouldn't think you can beat right now, considering what you're doing in this series, only to be down 2-0. The Clippers have also lost 5 playoff games in a row. 5 playoff games in a row. The Clippers also signed Serge Ibaka and traded for Rajon Rondo, only for them to have more contribution fighting against each other in the tunnel than they did on the court in the last 2 games. Oh, and yeah, the Clippers trash talked Luka Doncic in last year's playoffs, Patrick Beverley and Marcus Morris in particular, only to get dominated by that exact person in the first 2 games of this playoff and him talk directly to their face, telling Patrick Beverley, you're too small, and whatever he said to Marcus Morris after he posterized him. Like, punching bag or not, those are things that deserve to be noted. Now, before I go any further and talk about Luka and how he is unstoppable, and the Clippers have no answer to him, and how I was wrong about Kawhi being able to guard him, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. I make content like this every single day, and doing so, it helps out the video, and it would just be a nice thing to do. But let me just start by talking about the Kawhi thing. Yes, I did think Luka might be able to get slowed down by Kawhi. When I say slowed down, obviously I didn't think Luka was going to have 10 points. I was thinking somewhere along the lines of 25 points, which, just to put that into perspective, we're talking about one of the best wing defenders in NBA history. And I'm thinking someone in his 3rd year, in his 2nd playoffs, for him to get slowed down by this wing defender, 25 points would probably be a good result. So let's not take this as any Luka disrespect. I wasn't saying, oh, Luka's not good enough to go past Kawhi. I was just saying Kawhi, when fully engaged, should be able to slow down pretty much anyone in the league because he's proven that he can do it to anyone. Luka didn't really happen, and in general, Kawhi just didn't look like he wanted to slow down Luka. I think there were a few possessions where you could see Kawhi is still a good enough defender to at least make it harder for him. Luka went rainbow over him on one possession where Kawhi defended him well. Luka passed out of a couple of possessions in which Kawhi was defending him. Nothing crazy, nothing in which Kawhi had the clamps on him, but there were a couple of possessions in which you're like, yeah, if Kawhi did this the whole game, he could probably keep Luka about 10 points under what he would normally give you, which is 35, but he doesn't seem that interested because he doesn't really want to guard Luka because I guess he wants to put all that energy into offense. Maybe he's seen other guys that don't really do as much defensively and thought it's an offensive-minded league. Maybe he's injured. I don't exactly know why, but he was going under screens. The Clippers in general, going under screens. Kawhi went under a screen on a Luka 3. Like, what are you doing? Have you not seen the last few games where he's been shooting lights out? Why are you going under a screen? That was a terrible misjudgment. They're switching everything. Still, Patrick Beverley getting switched onto Luka. Too small. Too small. Rock a baby Russell Westbrook style. Russell Westbrook must be grinning ear to ear watching Patrick Beverley get dominated by Luka night in and night out, and watching Luka just directly say it to his face, "You're too small," with some expletives in there as well. "You're too small. You're a baby. You were talking last year while you were on the sidelines. Now all of a sudden you have to guard me and you have no chance because you're just too small." That's what he's saying, and it's pretty funny to see. Similar things to Marcus Morris. Not too small, just not good enough to guard Luka. And it is good to see after watching what the Clippers did. I watched a video again of what the Clippers did in last year's playoffs. I'm not one to say, "Oh yeah, fine them, ban them for doing a few dirty fouls." Like, that's fine. I think that's all right. That can happen every now and then. It's just funny how the Clippers were willing to bully Luka last year in his first playoffs in an underdog team where they looked like they had the series won from the first game or the second game, whenever it was, and they were pretty comfortable bullying him then. Now all of a sudden he's the one doing the bullying, and I don't exactly see much clapping back from the other end. Getting back to what I was saying, what are the Clippers doing on defense? Do we know? Does anyone have an answer? Ty Lue, what are we doing on defense? Not we, but what are you doing on defense? Because you're going under screens, you're switching everything. Zubac, I thought we've been over this. He's not a matchup for Luka. Beverley, I thought we've been over this. He's not a matchup for Luka. Kawhi and Paul George aren't fighting over screens, and we do have to give some credit to guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. Because of Hardaway Jr. hitting so many shots and him being the guy who's setting most of those screens, the Clippers having a conundrum. They don't want to fight over that screen and risk a chance in which Hardaway Jr. gets just open for a split second, and with Luka's vision, they know he's going to make that pass in an instant. So they're not in the easiest situation. So it's not as just easy as, say, fight over that screen and all of a sudden Hardaway Jr. is not going to be open or anything, or he's not going to have a little bit more time if you do that. At least try to figure out a way better than Beverley ending up on Luka. And then obviously double teaming him inside once he gets past Beverley, which is inevitable because he's beating him off the dribble every single time. It's also an issue because you've got shooters in every corner and you don't want to double team off him because Luka will look away and hit that shooter in the corner, and that could be a high percentage shot. There's things that Luka does that make him unguardable, and there's things that his Mavs teammates are doing that make him even more unguardable. Because if the Mavs teammates aren't hitting shots, then all of a sudden you double team him. You go over those screens. You don't worry about that because let's leave Hardaway Jr. open because all of a sudden he's not hitting his shots, but because they're hitting their shots, and people need to give credit to the Mavs teammates because they're making Luka's job a lot easier. I mean, he does some ridiculous things that it doesn't matter if you double team, single team, or whatever you do. If he's hitting one-legged fadeaway bank shots or one-legged fadeaway threes, what is that? What is that? Like I said, he's playing a game of horse out there against one of the teams that was a championship favorite. He's just out there chucking up shots and making them. They're ridiculous shots, and those are things that you can't defend, but other things you'd at least hope you could have a chance at defending. But because of what the Mavs teammates are doing, and because of what Luka did once he saw those double teams in the first game, once he saw those traps and passed straight over them and cut up the defense in game one, and now in game two, single coverage, he cut up the defense again. You're left with very, very few answers because, like I said, Kawhi doesn't really seem to want to guard Luka. On a few possessions, he was like, okay, I'll do it if I have to. But in general, he didn't really seem like that was something he wanted to take the task of doing. Even after the game, Ty Lue came out and said, yeah, the defense was a shambles, pretty much in those words. He just said the defense was all over the place. The Mavericks exposed the defense, if that's what you want to call it. All of those things, everything that we saw, he saw as well because he's an NBA coach. He's still a decent coach. Even though some of the things he's doing are questionable, I would also give a lot of credit to Luka and the Mavs because they're making the decisions next to impossible. What do you do when someone's going to pass out of double teams with ease? He's going to see over double teams because he's 6'8", single coverage, that's a wrap. If you fight over the screen and leave someone like Hardaway Jr., who's normally screening open, he's been lights out for the last second half of the season and he just dropped 28 points, even without you fighting over the screens and giving him an opportunity to do that. You don't have much to do. So in fairness to the Clippers, I know they're going to get slandered and they deserve some of it because their defense still isn't good enough and it still looks like a shambles. The Mavericks are definitely not making it easy for them. But in general, Luka is staking his claim as one of the best players in the league, which we already know, but just how good he is in terms of the league, it's getting close to right at the top. That's all I'm going to say. Not going to make any big calls yet, but it's getting right up to the top. Even defensively, he locked in on a couple of possessions, fronted Kawhi, got a turnover, had a couple of nice defensive possessions. He's someone that's okay on defense when he needs to be, and that's important because in playoff games down the stretch, like we saw, when you try to isolate Luka, and if he can get those stops, that's big. Obviously, during the game, he's not going to be locked in every single possession because he also carries one of the biggest offensive loads in NBA history, doing literally everything offensively. So defensively is a time in which he probably wants to get some rest of some sort, so he's not going to be locked in all the time. But if he can be locked in on a couple of possessions like he was down the stretch of this game, that's another thing that contributes to his case as being one of the best players in the league. But in general, the Clippers don't have an answer for Luka. I thought the answer might have been Kawhi. Apparently it's not, because he just doesn't seem like he wants to guard Luka every possession all night long, and who can blame him, because you wouldn't have much energy left on offense, particularly for someone who's had a few injuries and has had a few health concerns. That's something that could definitely wear you out. So if that's not the answer, I don't know what the answer is, Clippers. I don't know what the answer is. The answer might just be a loss. The answer might be a first round exit and getting what you wished for, which was avoiding the Lakers. In general, shout out to the Mavs role players as well. They deserve a lot of credit. Hardaway Jr. as well, playing like an all-star. He's not playing like a role player. He's playing like a star. And if he continues this way, well, then the Mavs could maybe make more than just a first round run. They could maybe make a deeper run, because he's the difference maker. He's the X factor. Like I mentioned before the series, he's the guy that could make it tick for them, because he's someone who could average 22 to 24 points a game in a series on fantastic shooting, and to make the decisions difficult for the defense because he's such a lights out shooter. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Have a great day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.